Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to join us for an informational orientation webinar for Class of 2027 families on supporting your students' well-being. My name is Emily Levine. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the Director of Parent Giving and Engagement here at the college. I want to welcome all of you to the Bates community. Now that your students have arrived at Bates, they are getting to know the campus, the Bates culture, and diving into their fall semester classes. They are also learning that their role as a student is evolving. Bates students are in the driver's seat when it comes to finding and accessing resources, advocating for themselves, and finding their niche. As a Bates parent, your role is changing too. As your students build independence and agency, in the words of a parent volunteer, families become guides on the side. Our virtual family orientation series is designed to help you understand which campus resources are available so that you can remind your students of the many avenues for support that are open to them. As they move through their Bates career, they will grow just as much from this process of finding their own solutions as they will through their academic endeavors. This evening's focus is supporting your students' well-being, and our session should run around 45 minutes. We will start the evening by hearing from these members of the Bates staff. Brenna Callahan, Associate Director of Health Services for Student Support. Brittany Longsdorf, lecturer in the Humanities and Multi-Faith Chaplain. Molly Newton, Senior Associate Dean of Students. Jimmy Riley, Director of Residence Life and Community Standards. Dree Huber, Assistant Dean of Students and Director of First Generation Programs. And Nick Cook, Associate Director of Athletics, Performance, and Sports Medicine. Just a few housekeeping notes. Everyone should see a Q&A function toward the bottom of your screen. You can add your question to the queue, and we will get to as many questions as possible. We did have some pre-submitted questions, so thank you all for those. Our panelists used those to help prepare for this evening. When you take a look at the Q&A tonight, we do encourage you to upvote for questions submitted by other parents. That will help signal to us the importance of common questions that we want to try to address live. Staff will also answer questions in writing throughout the evening. We're recording this session, and all families will receive a link and password as soon as that is ready. We'll also collect the Q&A transcript for you, so you'll have all of those resources. With that, I will ask Brenna Callahan to get us started.
Great, thanks, Emily. And thanks to everyone for being here tonight. My name is Brenna Callahan. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Associate Director of Health Services for Student Support. So our office is the doctor's office on campus. We are run in collaboration with Central Maine Medical Center, the hospital in Lewiston, and we offer many of the services that you would find in a primary care office. So that's illness management, vaccines, but also acupuncture and IUDs as well. We function more like an urgent care. So we have students walking in, calling, emailing all day, scheduling same-day appointments. We have a doctor available whenever we are open. So that's Monday through Friday from 9 to 5. We're located right next to the Office of Admission. And we have a doctor on call whenever we're closed. So students can call the health services phone number and get connected to a doctor that way. And we're about a mile from an emergency room and an urgent care close to campus. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Brittany.
Thanks. Hello, I'm Brittany Longsdorf. My pronouns are she, hers, and I'm the multi-faith chaplain at Bates College. And in this role, we supervise and support all of our spiritual and religious student clubs and organizations. There are many. I could list them in the chat, the current ones, but there are always new ones each year depending on the student body and what the practices are. And also connect students to local religious and spiritual communities in the wider Lewiston Auburn area. We also, out of our multi-faith chaplaincy office, host 4 to 6 multi-faith programs every week, which are programs designed to be for anyone of any tradition, but also from students from no tradition and who live more in the spiritual but not religious or curious space. And so these programs are really about finding community, doing mindfulness practices, and learning how to be your most authentic self. And our 2 multi-faith chaplains are also confidential resources who have lots of cups of tea and loving listening conversations with students as they sift through something difficult like grief or identity questions, and are just here to support students along their journey wherever they are. And now I will hand it off to Molly.
Thanks, Brittany. Hi, everyone. My name is Molly Newton. I'm a Senior Associate Dean of Students here at Bates. I use she, her, hers pronouns, and I'm a Bates alum. I'm here tonight to talk a little bit about what our general resources are for student support and also what some of our most specific resources are. So we're going to start with the general, a little bit about the Student Support Advisor, which is a professional staff member in the Dean of Students area that each student has assigned to them. So each of your students has a Student Support Advisor who is their primary resource for extracurricular concerns, challenges they may be navigating, things that are coming up. And that SSA is the clearinghouse for those sorts of concerns, a great resource for you to know about and to know to refer your student to reach out to that person. And then our support services get even more specific, from student support, residence life, student conduct, to our specific resources and accessible education, and our CAPS, Counseling and Psychological Services Office, which provides targeted clinical support to students seeking mental health care. They provide support on campus and also help students navigate accessing care in the community. So we'll talk a little bit more about those things later on, and I'm going to pass it to Jimmy.
Thanks, Molly. My name is Jimmy Riley. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm the Director of Residence Life and Community Standards. So I have the pleasure of working in our Office of Residence Life and Health Education. And within that, we have lots of levels of support for students. There's lots of great staff on this call tonight that'll talk about the areas. So I'll offer some thoughts on mine. So every first-year student particularly has a junior advisor, a JA. All of your students have met this person at this point. If they haven't, we should talk so that they do, but they definitely have. So this person focuses primarily on supporting students in the transition and connecting them to each other and to the campus. We don't have a traditional resident advisor model that if you have another student that goes to another institution, or maybe in your own college experience, you might have experienced where those folks kind of have a different role. Our students focus on student support and programming initiatives. They support around 10 to 20 students, depending on the first year center and the building that they're in. We also have a staff of 5 professional coordinators for Residence Life, who are professional staff members who offer additional student support, and they're actually on call 24/7 for student support. And you can get in touch with them, a student can, by contacting our campus safety office, and they can get over to wherever your student's at and offer whatever support they might need in the moment, in all kinds of different ways. So I'll leave it at that for now, and I'll hand it over to Dree.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Dree Huber. I'm the Assistant Dean and Director of First Generation Programs, and I work within our Office of Intercultural Education. So this office supports our first generation students, our LGBTQ+ students, and our students of colors. At another institution, you might hear this space be called a multicultural center. We have many peer mentoring programs, and we connect our returning students with new students, as well as we offer many different types of programming that provide connection and support to the students in many different forms. We partner very closely with all of the folks on this call, so it's great to be in a space with them. We also are fortunate that we have a gathering space in actually the newly renovated Chase Hall. So often some of the community is built just in that space in and of itself. So I'll leave it there for now, and I'll hand it off to Nick.
Thank you, and hello, everyone. I'm Nick Cook, the Associate Director of Athletics for Performance and Sports Medicine. I've been here at Bates now, going into my 6th year. We are in sports medicine. We're currently a staff of 6 full-time certified athletic trainers, including myself. We provide comprehensive care, including acute injury management, evaluation, as well as rehabilitation and reconditioning services to over 700 student athletes across 31 varsity teams. So as you can imagine, we have our hands full most of the time. We also have 2 primary care sports medicine team physicians who see student athletes in our facility for 2 half days per week. And additionally, we help to provide facilitation and care in our partnership with our Central Maine healthcare partners in Lewiston. And that situation mirrors very much what happens in health services. And we also have the ability to, through that partnership, to facilitate access to orthopedic surgeons, areas like cardiology and radiology, just to name a few. And now I will pass it back to Emily.
Great. Thank you, everyone, for your framing remarks. That gives us a lot of information to get started with. We're going to move now to the Q&A section of the evening. We'll start with some pre-submitted questions. And again, we'll try to take as many live questions as possible. Remember to use the Q&A function to submit a question and to use the upvote option to let us know if someone submitted a question that you're also interested in. Just a reminder that if your question pertains very narrowly to your student, we may respond outside of the session to protect your student's privacy. And if you do ask a question that is outside the direct expertise of tonight's panelists, we may give you a general response and then follow up or point you to more relevant resources. Brenna, I'm going to start with you. As we head into fall, what can you tell us about plans for a flu shot clinic on campus, COVID shot clinic? I see we've already had a question in the chat about supporting students who may test positive. What can you help us learn about this topic?
Yeah, of course. So we will have a vaccine clinic on campus for students, faculty, and staff. Details will be coming about that soon. It will be at the end of October, and that will be for flu vaccines and for the new COVID booster. So we'll have both available on campus to everyone. And then for testing positive to COVID, students can access healthcare in health service or at health services. They can do telehealth appointments with our physicians, but they can also call and ask any questions they have to any of our nurses as well. And they can kind of triage and get them the support that they need. We notify students, faculty that they're not going to be able to be in class for a couple days after that positive test. We also will have students get grab and go meals from the dining hall. And then I'm their support person. So they all have an email with all of that information, and they can reach out to me with any questions they have about navigating their classes, navigating kind of life on campus for those 5 days until they're feeling better.
Thank you. Unfortunately, a timely question. So thanks for helping us understand the full scope of ways that students are supported for that. Thank you. Nick, I'm going to come back to you. You had talked a little bit about how well-positioned sports medicine is to refer students out if they need medical support in the local area. Can you talk a little bit more specifically about how a student would go through that process if needed?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Emily. And we often, as athletic trainers, we're in a position where we see students from A to Z. So the beginning of what may happen if they have an injury or something that happens on the field. And typically we're working to try to carry them through. And we're really well positioned through our partnership with Central Maine to be able to have lots of referral options and be able to have really efficient access to things like orthopedic surgeons or our sports medicine physicians who come right to campus, as well as if they end up in a situation where they need some more long-term care or some physical therapy, those types of things that are beyond what we can do in our clinic in sports medicine. We have contracted services where physical therapy comes right to campus, and they are on campus 2 to 3 times per week, seeing students for various, all situations. And that's available to all students, not just student athletes. So there's lots of referrals that happen that way as well. And we're really, I think, again, to highlight, we're fortunate to be able to have the that Central Maine partnership and be able to get in for lots of things like x-rays and MRIs and those types of things, which are really helpful in navigating the healthcare process.
Great. Thank you so much, Nick. Jimmy, I'd like to ask you the next question. It's not unusual for us to hear from first-year families throughout the fall semester that their students aren't sure that they're settling in as well as their fellow first years, their peers. Given your work in residence life, can you give us the larger context on what is sort of typical as a trajectory for settling in and finding your people?
Yeah, thanks, Emily. It's a topic near and dear to my heart. I've worked with first-year students for a long time and supporting them through that, journey. And there is no typical journey. There is no typical time frame. I think it's if you're hearing from your student right now on September 21st about the fact that they're feeling a little uneasy or feeling like they need some extra support, my best advice to you is to first have them take a deep breath and remind them that they chose Bates for a reason, and there are lots of people here to support them through that. And that starts with their junior advisor and their student staff member that they can first go to check in with. Those students are trained in supporting first years in particular through the trials and tribulations of what it means to be a new student in a new place, in a new on a new campus, in a new community. So first and foremost, they should talk to them. And right now is also the time where some of our students are in a place where they're like, I don't know, my roommate and I aren't really jiving. We feel like I feel like everybody else is like making friends left and right, and I'm kind of over here. And honestly, it takes time. Like many of our students have varying experiences with their educational journeys and time in which they've spent with, maybe they've gone to public schools along the way, and they spent 12 years of their life with the same group of people. And now they're in a new place where they probably were here on the first day and didn't maybe know that many folks, and maybe they knew no one. And part of our role is to make sure we connect them to each other, like I said in my intro. And I think part of that is the JA. And if they're feeling like, geez, I need some more support beyond that, then what the next step is, they should talk to their JA, and then we can get them connected to us and our professional staff in our office to explore that further and think about what are the things they're interested in, what are the clubs and organizations that they might be interested in checking out and learning more about. There's lots of ways that we can get them connected to people that might share a similar interest. And I guess to most directly answer the question, I think over the first year, it moves in a way that they may not expect, and that's okay, because at the end of the day, there's lots of people here to support and lots of people here to get them connected to one another. So and just have them reach out to us. That's what we're here for. So yeah.
Great. Thank you, Jimmy. That's really helpful. Dree, I'd love to turn to you. Listening to Jimmy's answer, there was a lot about sort of webs of connection, webs of support. And I'd love to have you speak to that same concept from the work that you do with first generation to college students at Bates. What can you share about your work in the ways that you help our first gen students build that sense of community?
Absolutely. I was thinking the same thing as Jimmy was talking, that we work very hard for these webs of connection across campus. So in the OIE, there are many ways that we do this. Both we connect folks within cohorts with one another. So for our first gen students, they are in cohorts. Particularly if you have a first gen student, they're probably either identified as a Kessler Scholar. There are 35 of those in this incoming class, or a Bobcat First student as well. So all of these students get both individual support. I am their point person in our office for support, but also we have first generation peer mentors, which are returning students who are also first generation, who are there and have been assigned to support incoming first years. And in addition to that, we do a lot of community building programming and connection to community resources. So one example of this is we did a dinner, I think it was last week actually, with a member of Student Financial Services. So there was this opportunity to build community with one another, but also to build community with Student Financial Services, get some questions answered and learn their resources so that they're feeling supported, not just in building relationships, but maybe getting their needs met as well.
Fantastic. Dree, thank you so much. Molly, I'd like to come to you next. We had a number of pre-submitted questions about how students access mental health services, both on campus and in the surrounding area. Can you walk us through a little bit more of the services that Bates provides through CAPS, and then how the college supports students in accessing other resources if they're needed?
Thanks, Emily. Absolutely. Mental health care is one of the things that we encourage our students to consider and to try out as they're trying out a whole menu of different things as students. And CAPS is a great partner as they're approaching that. One of the most user-friendly parts of CAPS is that CAPS operates primarily off of same-day appointments. So if your student is calling you struggling with homesickness or navigating a roommate issue, a breakup, or maybe you're starting to see something that you're worried is looking like some oncoming depression, anxiety, students can reach out to CAPS to get seen very quickly. And the model at CAPS is predicated on responding to students on a short-term, like quick turnaround basis, because we know that's what they need. Many of our students are accessing mental health services for the first time, and we want to capitalize on the momentum that they have when they reach out for support or acknowledge to themselves that they have a need and see them quickly. So for all of you to know, students can set up appointments on the phone. We know they dread the phone. Phones are very scary. So they can also use email and reach out to our team in CAPS. I was working with CAPS today on a support situation and was reminded how friendly and lovely Patty, the woman who answers the phone in CAPS, is. So if your student is anxious about calling to make an appointment, know that they've got a very warm welcome when they do that. And the same sorts of resources are available to set up over email as well. So quick short-term care, getting students seen quickly is the priority. And like a physical health appointment where part of that intake is understanding what someone needs and what type of expertise is needed, CAPS operates in the same way. They're going to be looking at what your student needs, what is clinically indicated, and what type of support will be best. And sometimes with students who have more complicated needs, who are looking to replicate weekly long-term therapy that they may have experienced in high school, middle school, long-term, CAPS is a really good resource for getting connected into providers in the community. So there are a couple different ways that students may end up connecting with providers in the Lewiston area. We have a great variety of resources, and I always hesitate to list what they're called, but the CAPS website is a really good option. I'll make sure to pop that in the chat. It lists opportunities like Talkiatry, Thriving Campus, options that are really geared towards connecting students to providers in a way that meets the needs of their schedules, of their transitions from home to school and back and forth as semesters move. So I am always very happy to partner with CAPS. I love when our students partner with CAPS. And we tend to be a pretty open and affirming campus as people are talking about accessing mental health care. One option that I will highlight that is one that sometimes students aren't thinking of, but is particularly timely at this time of year, are groups. So groups are a great way to make connections. And a lot of what students are struggling, whether they're first years or seniors, is the transition back into campus, building those social connections, figuring out what their social life on campus will look like for this particular year. And groups can be a really great place to do that. Our CAPS team in intake appointments will help students navigate groups. There's information about groups available on the website, and all of those resources are really helpful ways of connecting students to care. I will highlight some of the challenges that we know come up sometimes. One of them would be thinking a little bit about eating disorders as a case study. Those are specific situations that really benefit from a network of people supporting a student. And we're really lucky that we have that network. CAPS and Bates Health Services work very closely together. Brenna is a fabulous resource for students on the BHS side, and certainly partners with our students who are experiencing eating disorder concerns as well. So we want to make sure that we're supporting students holistically and we're attending to each of their needs, and that we're not leaving them to coordinate care by themselves. That's a really important value across all of our student support options here at Bates. And eating disorders is a good example of where we bring together a team of people to assess what students need and what that can look like. At the end of the day, I would encourage you to help your student know that it's normal. It's something that lots of students on campus do, and it's a really wonderful place to get started, and that the CAPS team can help students connect to the type of care that will be best for them. They don't need to know that going in the door, but they'll help them figure it out when they get there. Thanks.
Great. Thank you so much, Molly. I appreciate that. Brittany, I'd love to come to you next. I'm thinking about this thread of webs of support and connection that we've heard from a number of panelists this evening. And for any first-year students who are seeking that out, actually your program, the Multi-Faith Chaplaincy, offers a number of programs, as you described, some tied to a faith tradition and others not, but that are really designed to help students build authentic connection. I'd love to have you talk about about that. And you know that I have a favorite Bates example that I hope you will lead with.
Sure. I'm believing your favorite is Hearth, which is a beloved tradition at Bates. This is a multi-faith program that's been around for almost 20 years now, where students come to the multi-faith chaplaincy. We're in this little house kind of next to admissions. It's very cozy, right next to campus, feels like a home. It's connected to the Harvard Center, our volunteer and community engagement center. And they come for a dinner that's based in query style conversation. So they'll come and do a big introduction. Then we'll file through a line of usually local takeout. There's a real favoring for pad thai in this current group of students. So usually we'll get big plates of pad thai, and then they'll break into groups of 10 or 12 with a student trained facilitator, and they'll sit in silence while they eat dinner, which is very strange. And the facilitator will pose 2 queries, and then they'll kind of share to the queries and then come back into silence and make space for each other. So it's this sort of space for deep reflection and then being kind of authentic and vulnerable in community in a way that feels really held by that silence. And then you come back and make space for each other. We just had our first Hearth last week, and I was just looking up the queries where when did you make your closest friend and how did you make them? And so this is kind of reminding students in first years that queries leading into maybe you haven't found your people yet. When you found your person in high school, it probably wasn't on week 2 as well, you know? And then the second query was, how will you make Bates feel like home this year? And what are the elements of home that are important to you? And so then the students are sharing to these queries in these small groups for about an hour. So it's really lovely. It's open to anyone of any tradition or anyone of no tradition. And we do a lot of programs like this that have some silence or mindful element and some authenticity practice, community building practice around them to help students kind of discover who they are while being in relationship to other people. So these are some of the things we really love. And I think a really good thing to point your student to if they're having a hard time connecting or meeting new people out of their roommate or their floor. Sometimes multi-faith events are called the club for introverts. So if you have an introverted student, they're often really good events where you can be reflective and be on the quieter side and still be in a group of people and be in community together. So Hearth and Pause are the 2 ones you'll hear students talk most about, but Hearth is definitely a fan favorite at Bates and has been around for a long time.
Great, thank you so much. I see that our panel has been fantastic about answering all of the questions in the queue. I'm gonna just sort of tap dance here for a minute to make sure that nobody has anything else that they want to add to the queue while we have these experts with us this evening. But hopefully our conversation has really helped to give a sense of scope of all of the many elements out there for support around well-being. Not seeing anything else pop up in the chat, I'll wrap us a little bit early, but before I do that, I want to ask one sort of closing question. Molly, I'd like to ask you, as we wrap up, first year students can understandably get a little bit overwhelmed about where to turn for support as they settle in at Bates. What is the biggest piece of advice that you would leave parents with this evening as they support their students?
Thanks, Emily. I'm honored to be asked such a question and to get to kind of wrap us up tonight. What I will say is that my biggest advice for you as parents and support people is, much like you may have just been teaching your student how to drive and you're talking about accelerators and brakes, I think the same is true tonight. And as you're approaching the next big adjustment period that they may be going through, there are going to be a lot of times when you're going to be coaching to be like, oh, we got to slow down. Like, let's take it down a notch, take a breath, take some pressure off yourself. How can we slow this down a little bit so that something that maybe feels really urgent and high stakes actually can be something that they approach with a little more grace, compassion, space for themselves, maybe a little bit more in the calm range. So applying the brake, particularly to things like expectations around friends, how quickly they will amass how many friends, some of the comparison stuff that comes up as students are going through a big adjustment process. There's a lot of lessons to learn in that first semester, first year, adjusting to life away from home and creating a little bit of space from those expectations, slowing things down a little bit, giving space to breathe and adjust and figure it out. Those are all really, really important things that can be helpful from a parent perspective when you're talking with a student. The opposite is also going to be true. You may hear your students sometimes telling you things that you're like, ooh, this would be a thing to speed up on. This is something to not sit on. It's something to address quickly, to figure out, to not avoid, and to really tackle some of those challenging things that may come up head on. Things related to that are often around in the academic space. Maybe there's a couple bad grades that come in early and your student is maybe taking a little bit too long to access some of those resources. Maybe there are some early challenges with roommates or disagreements, conflicts popping up. And maybe instead of doing a wait and see there, it really will be helpful to them to push themselves a little bit more to change those habits quickly, to address patterns right away. And figuring out what the pace of a more independent away from home life is going to look like. And as the support people, you have kind of the eye in the sky looking in and seeing what patterns are emerging, what's the long-term average here. You'll be able to ride out some of the ups and downs that happen. I'm always impressed by how quickly, particularly with our first year students, things can be going perfectly, and then how quickly they can be going terribly, and also how quickly they come back around to be going great again. I've had a couple of students that I've been meeting with already who are advisees of mine who've been through the I'll be ready. They came in crying one day, we meet 2 days later and I'm ready for tears, and suddenly everything's really bounced back. So honor their resilience, appreciate it, help them figure out how to speed up and how to slow down and how to recognize those situations. And finally, how to be vulnerable in a new community. There's a huge support network out there for them, both from the professional staff and from their peers. And everyone has the same goal, whether it's professional staff or students. Everyone's here to be part of an excited community that really leans into each other. And it will be a process. There will be good days, there will be bad days, but by reaching out to others and really investing wholly in that process and reminding them that they belong here, those are the things that will help them be successful, will help them learn to access resources themselves, and will help you also stay grounded in the ups and downs. We're here to help, we're here to be supportive, and we're really excited to be getting to know this new class. They're pretty great. I've had some great opportunities to get to know them already. So I'm excited for what the next 4 years will bring.
Great. Thank you so much. That's really, really helpful context. Before we wrap, I'm going to, since we've been talking about well-being, Brenna, I'd love to have you give a plug for parents to urge their students to some other upcoming wellness and well-being resources that will be available to them.
Great. Thanks, Emily. So next week, starting on Monday, is Wellbeing Week. So all of your students can find information about this in Bates Today. So it's all in their email. And we are going to have every department reflected on this call and so many more coming together to do programming for our students around well-being. So it's a great opportunity. The way I'm thinking about it is for first years to try something new, something that they maybe didn't do the first couple of weeks that they've been curious about. Go to Hearth, like Brittany talked about. Try a meditation. We have a really sweet program happening on Tuesday, I believe, that's called Everything is Different Here. And we're thinking about that for so many first years getting to campus for the first time. And that's going to be run by our by James Reese, a campus celebrity who works with international students, and by Wayne Singh, our director of the counseling office. So just tell them to look out for it. There'll be posters all around campus, and we hope to see them there.
Fantastic. A great springboard into from our conversation with parents to reminders they can make for their student. Thank you. We covered a lot of ground today. I just want to remind folks that in addition to the transcript, you'll have the video link. So all of those resources we'll be sending out by email. That we usually send them 48 to 72 hours following the close of the event. So you can keep an eye out for that. And that does conclude our family orientation webinar series. We hope this has been helpful for you as you support your first year students. And we hope that as your students settle into life at Bates, you will all think about how you might like to be engaged and connected as parents. As part of the Office for College Advancement, My team and I work with parent volunteers and donors in a number of ways. And if you plan to be back on campus for Back to Bates, October 6th and 7th, I really encourage you to attend the Volunteer with Bates session happening 8:45 a.m. on Saturday, October 7th on the Olin Terrace. We would love to talk to you more about volunteering, and we'd love to work with you. So many thanks to everyone for joining us this evening. We are really excited that your students and you are part of the Bates community. Thanks so much. Good night.